joins us, we are going to move on and we're talking cabinet predictions today. Dr. Andrew Holness is set to be sworn in as Prime Minister for a third consecutive term on Tuesday, following the JLP's victory in the September 3 general election. The JLP won 35 of the 63 parliamentary seats, with the PNP winning the remaining 28. The victory makes Dr. Holness the first JLP leader to achieve the feat. Tuesday's swearing in will be the fourth overall for Dr. Holness. Dr. Holness was sworn in as Prime Minister for the first time in 2011 following the resignation of Bruce Golding. Holness, the then Education Minister, became Jamaica's youngest ever Prime Minister at 39 years of age. He decided to go to the polls in 2012 but failed to receive a mandate from the country's electorate. Dr. Holness was sworn in for the second time to serve his first full term in 2016 after defeating the Portia Simpson-Miller-led PNP. He was sworn in for a third time in 2020 after defeating the PNP's Dr. Peter Phillips. And following Tuesday's swearing in, Dr. Holness is expected to announce his new slate of cabinet ministers. To discuss this, political commentator Jermaine Barrett believes Ambassador Audrey Marks and Rhoda Moy Crawford should be considered among the new additions to the cabinet.
Ambassador Audrey Marks, having won and albeit a safe seat, he ought to be considering her for a position that possibly within the Ministry of Investment, Industry and Commerce. That would be, I think, an appropriate and fitting appointment for her, given her expertise in business. You're also thinking about Rhoda Moy Crawford. Rhoda Moy Crawford certainly deserves to be appointed within the cabinet, having won Manchester Central the second time around, a PNP bastion. It is now ultimately one of the prized position of the JLP right now. And so one could see Rhoda Moy Crawford possibly as a state minister within the Ministry of Education.
Mr. Barrett also believes that Dr. Holness could face pressure to replace the current Finance Minister, Favour Williams.
There is a concern, I think, with respect to the Ministry of Finance. Favour Williams doesn't inspire confidence, and I think that with the opposition now gunning after her because they have the strength in the Parliament, he's going to be concerned as to whether or not she can really withstand the pressure, and whether or not her stewardship of the ministry is going to be strong enough to sort of give the people of the country confidence. And so I think he's going to be concerned about that. I'm also eyeing Matthew Somoda as being somebody who I think deserves a ministry of his own, possibly the Ministry of Job Creation, Economic Growth and Job Creation, or possibly, I don't know what his acumen is, but possibly finance.
That's Jermaine Barrett, political commentator. Well, joining us now is veteran journalist Pete Sankey and president of the Jamaica Employers Federation, Wayne Chen. Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Good afternoon.
So let's start with you, Pete Sankey, and let's start with that critical portfolio, finance. As Mr. Barrett suggested there, do you believe Favour could potentially be replaced as the finance minister?
No, I Favour knows her numbers. She's outspoken, so maybe people are just thinking that she doesn't understand or doesn't know football as well. She knows her numbers, but what the Prime Minister could do was to strengthen the ministry by naming a minister without portfolio in the finance ministry, and that could be Anthony Hill. That's oh my God. Not Anthony Hill. Auburn Hill.
You mean, yes, Auburn Hill.
Auburn Hill, right.
And what say you, Wayne Chen, on that same matter?
I wouldn't want to get into the granular details. I think Favour Williams should stay as Minister of Finance. In fact, I don't think the Prime Minister should change any ministers. What the Prime Minister should be looking at now, and I'll say why. We have, as the media and the public, become too enamored of this idea of new each time there is a change of government. What we have not spent enough time around is policy continuity and allowing ministers who have built up a certain amount of experience and understanding of how their ministries work to allow them to continue to do their work. It's not as glamorous, it's not as buzzy, it's not as headline grabbing, but Jamaica needs that. Jamaica needs a period of boringness and just policy continuity. Of course, I know the new younger politicians who have been in parliament at least one term and are rearing to go, they might feel a little disappointed. But you also have to think about succession planning.
Yes.
Bringing in some state ministers now, some of the newer faces, some of the faces, the names mentioned earlier, also now come into the ministries as ministers of state to understudy what is there, and so there can be a smooth succession in terms of the handing of the baton, even before the next election. The last thing I want to say is, and I want to speak specifically around Audrey Marks. I think she had a responsibility around public sector reform, around digital transformation. That's one of the things that's going to be critical in the new administration. Successive administrations going back at least 30 years have lamented, and numerous prime ministers, everyone since P.J. Patterson's time, have lamented the lack of joined-up government. Government is not operating as efficiently as it ought to, simply because of structural issues. We have solved some of these problems. The public sector salary reform has allowed the public sector to attract better talent, but it has not moved sufficiently quickly to improve its processes. Ministries and agencies are not coordinating their efforts and working with each other. So you have both the internal within the ministries and how they coordinate among each other. That needs a certain focus. And I think the Prime Minister in his last go-round had tasked Audrey Marks with that. I think that function ought to be strengthened as a coordinating function to get the ministries to work better. So my short answer is, don't move any ministers. Bring some new blood in to understudy and work towards relentlessly driving more efficiencies within the public sector.
Well, we're up on the break, gentlemen, and I'd like to bring Pete Sankey back on that topic after regarding the no full term tomorrow about 4 o'clock, and we would expect that sometime later in the week or sometime later he will name his cabinet. And we have with us veteran journalist Pete Sankey, as well as president of the Jamaica Employers Federation, Wayne Chen. So Pete Sankey, Wayne Chen says no need for any major reshuffles. Continuity is the watchword. Maybe some people to shadow the senior people currently there. What say you? Do you think that's the way forward? That we should just have continuity government and not expect any major changes at the helm?
Yeah, I too would not suggest or expect any major change. Industry and Commerce, I would appoint Audrey Marks to the ministry. Works, I would bring back Andrew Wheatley to the cabinet, and name Juliet Holness as a state minister. Tourism, I think Dylan and Steve Wright should be ready by now to cover that ministry. People will say, why remove Ed Bartlett? Bartlett has been in politics from October 1980, and I think it might be time for him now to give a young global a chance. He could, I think, Bartlett understand the parliamentary rules and so he could be selected as a speaker with the Everett Warmington as the House leader.
That pick of Everett Warmington, would that one be a bit controversial, so to speak, considering Mr. Warmington's posture? I know he's one who has a very deep understanding of the parliamentary procedures, but he's had quite a few run-ins, so to speak, in terms of his posturing.
Yes, but I don't think there's anybody, any of the new MPs or MPs elect, if there's anyone who understands the parliamentary rules like Warmington. Warmington went to Parliament in 1980. I think he was age 29 at the time. He understands the party, he understands the rules of Parliament, and I would expect him as House leader to be fair. Expect him to be fair.
And what about the slate of ministries, Pete Sankey? Do you think there are any portfolios themselves that might need either an adjustment or just an abolishment, so to speak, based on their performance over the last 2 terms?
All right. I would keep Robert Morgan in the office of the Prime Minister, and Prime Minister could take on, well, he has housing already, or in the last administration. But I would digital transformation to the office of the Prime Minister, with Robert Morgan being a minister without portfolio, in terms of education, education, youth, and the information, keep Dana Morris Dixon with Africa Fitzhenley and Corinthia Morrison as state ministers. Security Orishan should go back. I mean, it has done well.
Wait, before you go forward, you think information should stay attached to education and youth?
Well, yes, I think it should. It's not just going to go back to the office of the Prime Minister. That's been the tradition. That's why I'm suggesting that Africa Fitzhenley, who understands the portfolio of information, could be sent to that ministry as a center and state minister.
And what say you, Wayne Shen? I mean, let's name some of those more interesting ministries, so to speak. In the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation, do you think it has served its purpose and should remain as is?
It needs a certain focus, but here's the dilemma. The government has produced some terrific numbers. I mean, we just heard on this news report that inflation is at a 60-year low. We know unemployment is at record low. Poverty reduction is at a record low. All the numbers are looking good, except one, and that is
It's growth.
economic growth.
Yes.
Economic growth is not generated by a ministry. Economic growth has several components linked to infrastructure, linked to productivity, and so on and so forth. Hence my earlier comment about somebody now bringing up peak performance out of all the component bits that are comprising government. Mr. Sankey, veteran journalist, I don't want to start describing me as veteran commentator. too quickly, but no. But
Okay.
there are some good workers among the ministers. I mean, I think you mentioned Matthew Samuda earlier. It may well be the time to expand his portfolio. I mean, I believe Dalbad has announced that it will be his last rodeo. He is in charge of a super ministry. That is transportation. That used to be two ministries in one. I think, not naming someone, but an understudy needs to go there. There's just too much happening for that minister to walk away without that succession plan in place. And as I say, look across the hard-working newbies. And when I say newbies, people who are now 5 years in, 6 years in, but not with bigger slate of responsibility, and bring them in. As I say, Jamaica has suffered from policy discontinuity. We need some continuity now with experienced hands, handing over in a very measured way to new energy and new talent.
Pete Sankey? Sorry there, continue. I continue there, Wayne Shen. Sorry about that.
So, as I say, it doesn't make for the same kind of headlines. It doesn't create that that excitement. But the country needs that kind of breather. And I'm talking about, I am someone who has been following this for over 50 years. And this is the most continuity we have had for a while. In terms, too, of policy continuity, bearing in mind that many of these policies are now 10 and 12 years old. And we are seeing the fruits of that success. It's now to pivot towards strong and sustained and inclusive economic growth. And that's the hard part. That is going to be more difficult. It is going to be difficult. We mentioned the Ministry of Finance earlier. Some difficult negotiations are going to have to take place over the next coming months.
Yes.
As the public sector has expectations now of benefiting from these good numbers that they have produced. We have to talk now about the digital transformation of the public sector, which will mean some displacement, some upskilling, some discomfort for people who have operated with a pen and paper all their lives and now suddenly some young whiz is going to tell them, no, that is not the way to do it. We have some serious issues to talk about. We have to talk about now, how do we coordinate between important ministries that are looking about the health and safety of our people. And I talk about how can the Ministry of Education, just give an example, work more closely with the Ministry of Health to make sure that our young people are growing up in environments, in households, in communities that are enhancing their wellness and not just putting more diagnostic equipment in hospitals after the fact, but know how to pivot towards a healthier society all around, one that is more orderly, safer, and healthier generally. How do we deal with the demographic challenges? Because we have an aging society. Who is going to look after all the old people? Where is the social protection? So we have some huge tasks ahead. And I don't think it is going to be personality driven. We know some of the ministers have a public reputation for hard work. Some of them not so publicly, but they are still doing the work. But as I say, I am urging the PM, and it is his discretion, of course, to think about continuity and building on what we have done, because the pivot to strong, sustained, and inclusive economic growth is the next part of the journey forward.
Well said. Pete Sankey, I think you wanted to come in terms of the ministry and portfolios themselves.
You mentioned Matthew Samuda. Matthew Samuda has proved himself. He's one for the future. And I think Matthew Samuda should not be given his full ministry. And I will put him at water and the environment. Daryl Vaz should remain as energy, science, and transport. And he has said publicly that he has some unfinished business regarding the JPS license and the rural school bus system.
And I actually want to ask you, Pete Sankey, one of the newest ministries, if not the newest, I believe, the Ministry of Legal Affairs, Constitutional and Legal Affairs. With this matter of the constitutional reform kind of at loggerheads, do you see a reason for that ministry to continue as is?
I haven't looked at it, Trevon. I believe there should be a change, but I can't put a name to that ministry right now.
You can't see anybody beyond Malahoo heading that?
No, I can't see beyond that right now.
How about you, Wayne Shen, the Ministry of Legal and Constitutional Affairs? You see that sticking around, or do you see that just naturally falling back into justice?
It may well fall back into justice because the current Minister of Justice is a bit older than me. And the Minister of Constitutional Affairs is a bit younger than me. So I think they coming together and pooling up talent wouldn't be something that would do any harm. Justice needs a particular focus. We have made some strides, but there's still a lot of work to be done in terms of modernizing processes. But it comes back again to the whole issue of public sector reform and bringing modern processes to bear. A part of it, too, as I say, is we don't want government to be too fragmented. As I said, joined up government is a critical buzzword, but also critical actions going forward. So I think it would aid the process to bring them back together.
And just to finally to both of you first, Pete Sankey, we've already highlighted Matthew Samuda as a potential youngster who is rising up and up. Is there anybody else in terms of the new slate of MPs you believe should be given a portfolio or a state minister position in order to show what they are capable of?
Well, well, not really new, but she's on a second term. I already mentioned Rhoda Moy Corpus. I would put her in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. I think she has that portfolio. She has that type of... she could be a state minister. She has that profile, I should say, not a portfolio. Julia Cuthbert-Still, I would put to work. I work with Orange Chang in the
National Security.
Right, and I would Alan the Carolyn. I would reassign him to I work with Bob the Grange in culture, sports, and entertainment. Outside of that, I'm not seeing any other. No, okay, I did mention APCO and Carencia in the Ministry of Youth, Education, and Information.
And you, Wayne Chen, and let's focus on Carencia and ABCA. This matter of the Ministry of Information, do you see it well served attached to the portfolio of education, or do you believe, as with many countries, that it should be a standalone ministry, considering what I believe to be its importance in terms of governmental communication?
I think it could stand alone because I think we underestimate the value and power of communication. And this is not just about post-cabinet press conferences. This is about stakeholder engagement, and I don't want to sound too theoretical here. We have to have ways to mobilize the population around some national programs. And this is where communication is the heart of everything you do. Because policies have a much greater chance of success when you have genuine stakeholder engagement right from the early. And this is where communication comes in. And this is where you need that sort of focus. So I would certainly advocate for it, not just being a sort of afterthought at education or elsewhere, but something much more central in the business of government and governance.
Well, Wayne Chen, president of the Jamaica Employers Federation, and veteran journalist Pete Sankey, as we've all said, it's the Prime Minister's ultimate decision as to where he feels the country should head next. So we wait and see. Thank you both for joining us this evening.